Imagine standing in the middle of a village, where every home still stands. The streets are silent, the temples are empty, the desert wind is the only sound you'll hear. This is Kuldhara, an abandoned village hidden deep within Rajasthan's Thar Desert. For nearly 2 centuries, its empty streets have inspired one of India's most enduring mysteries. According to local legend, hundreds of families walked away from this village. In a single night, they left behind their homes, their temples, their memories, and before disappearing into the darkness, they are said to have left behind a curse that no one would ever be able to settle here again. But legends and history are rarely the same story. Was Kuldhara truly abandoned overnight, or did years of hardship slowly transform reality into one of India's greatest legends? Tonight, we separate myth from history and uncover the story behind one of Rajasthan's most fascinating abandoned places. This is the Lost Files. Case File 001, Kuldhara.
Long before Kuldhara became known as one of India's most famous abandoned villages, it was simply home. Located around 18 kilometers west of Jaisalmer, the village stood on the edge of the Thar Desert. Life here was never easy. Rain was scarce. Summers were unforgiving. The land demanded patience, knowledge, and resilience. The people who settled here were the Paliwal Brahmins. They were respected for their knowledge of agriculture, water conservation, and trade. In an environment where every drop of water mattered, they developed sophisticated systems to collect rainwater and manage limited resources. Over time, their expertise transformed this harsh desert landscape into a thriving community. Stone houses lined narrow streets. Temples stood at the center of village life. Markets connected local farmers and traders. Children played in courtyards while families gathered every evening beneath the warm glow of oil lamps. Kuldhara was not an isolated settlement. It was one of several prosperous Paliwal villages spread across the region. Together, they formed a closely connected community built on cooperation and shared traditions. Looking at the quiet ruins today, it is difficult to imagine that these empty streets were once filled with conversation, laughter, and daily life. But every abandoned place has a beginning, and every mystery.
Almost anyone in Rajasthan about Kuldhara, and you'll likely hear the same story. According to local folklore, the peaceful life of the village changed because of one powerful man. His name was Salim Singh. He served as an influential minister in the kingdom of Jaisalmer. Legend says he became determined to marry the daughter of the village chief. The villagers refused. The minister's demands reportedly became more aggressive. Faced with an impossible choice, the community gathered together. What happened next has been passed down through generations. The story claims that during a single night, the people of Kuldhara, along with residents from several neighboring villages, quietly packed what little they could carry. No celebrations, no farewells, no turning back. Under the light of lanterns, they walked into the desert, leaving behind homes that had sheltered their families for generations. Before leaving, the legend says they spoke one final warning, that no one would ever truly live in Kuldhara again. It is a powerful story, one that continues to attract thousands of visitors every year. But legends evolve. They become richer, more dramatic, with every generation that retells them. So the question remains, did hundreds of families really disappear in a single night? Or has folklore slowly reshaped the memory of a much more complicated history?
For generations, the story of Kuldhara has been told as a tale of courage, defiance, and a mysterious curse. But history rarely leaves behind simple answers. When historians and researchers began studying the abandoned village, they found very little evidence supporting a sudden disappearance. Instead, they uncovered signs of a community facing years of growing hardship. The Thar Desert has always been unforgiving. Water determined everything. It decided where people could live, what they could grow, and whether a settlement could survive another season. Historical records suggest that water sources around Kuldhara gradually became less reliable. As wells produced less water, agriculture became increasingly difficult. Families who had once prospered were forced to adapt. At the same time, the region experienced growing economic pressure. Many historians believe that heavy taxation imposed by the administration of Jaisalmer placed an additional burden on the Paliwal Brahmin community. Maintaining farms, supporting families, and paying increasing taxes became more difficult with every passing year. Rather than one dramatic night, the real story may have unfolded over decades. One family leaves, then another, until eventually an entire village falls silent. It is a far less dramatic explanation, but sometimes history is quieter than legend. Still, one question remains. If Kuldhara was abandoned gradually, how did the legend of a single night's escape become so deeply rooted in local memory?
Although historians continue debating the reasons behind Kuldhara's abandonment, the legend never disappeared. Instead, it grew stronger. Visitors arriving at the ruins often hear the same warning: leave before sunset. Whether this tradition began from superstition, local custom, or simply the practical challenges of visiting a remote desert location, it has become part of the village's identity. Stories of strange sounds, unexplained footsteps, and an unsettling silence have been shared for decades. None of these stories have been scientifically verified. Yet, they continue to attract thousands of curious visitors every year. Perhaps that is the true power of folklore. It fills the spaces where history remains uncertain. Walking through Kuldhara today, it is easy to understand why these stories endure. Rows of empty sandstone homes stretch across the desert. Temple walls still stand. Narrow streets lead nowhere. Every doorway seems to ask the same question: who lived here? What were their final days like? And why did no one ever return? The silence itself becomes part of the experience, not because it proves anything supernatural, but because abandoned places remind us that every civilization, no matter how successful, can disappear.
Nearly 200 years have passed since the people of Kuldhara left their homes. The buildings remain, the temples remain, the streets remain. Only the people are gone. Today, Kuldhara is protected as a heritage site. Archaeologists continue studying its architecture. Historians continue examining old records. Visitors continue searching for answers. Some believe the legend completely. Others see the village as a reminder of environmental change, economic hardship, and the slow decline of once prosperous communities. Perhaps both stories exist for a reason. History explains how people lived. Legends explain how people remembered. And somewhere between the two lies the truth. A truth that may never be fully known. Kuldhara does not need ghosts to be mysterious. Its empty homes, its abandoned streets, and its remarkable history are powerful enough on their own. Sometimes, the greatest mysteries are not the ones we cannot explain. They are the ones that continue making us ask questions long after everyone involved has disappeared.
Kuldhara has stood in silence for nearly 2 centuries. Whether its people left during a single unforgettable night or over many difficult years, one fact remains unchanged. An entire community, once filled with life, exists today only as weathered stone and fading memories. History gives us evidence. Folklore gives us stories, and somewhere between them, Kuldhara became a legend. Perhaps the real mystery was never the curse. Perhaps it was the resilience of the people who chose to leave everything behind, rather than surrender what they believed in. As the desert wind continues to move through these empty streets, one question still remains. If you had arrived here, on the morning after, what would you have believed? Thank you for watching. This was The Lost Files, Case File 001, Kuldhara. And until the next case, keep questioning the stories history leaves behind.